Hey gang, Jake here. How do you even start to talk about Splatoon? It's such an odd video game. I mean, 7 years ago it showed up on the Wii U, and now its third installment is Japan's fastest selling game of all time. That's an insane popularity boost, and personally, I'm all for it. This franchise has carved out a special niche for itself in Nintendo's library, and its inclusion in Smash Ultimate makes perfect sense. But with how fast the franchise is growing, and how well Splatoon 3 is doing, I think it only makes sense to give the franchise a new fighter in whatever's next for the Smash games. And if we're talking Splatoon characters who bring a ton to the table for Smash, there's no one else to discuss but Deep Cut. Well, that's a lie. There's plenty of characters to discuss, and that's what we'll do here and now. For this video, we're going to discuss the future of Splatoon in Smash Bros., from returning characters to popular picks for Ultimate to all new faces that we could see. With that out of the way, let's begin. What Ultimate did to represent Splatoon was great, and it totally makes sense that they went the direction they did, but it was admittedly very Splatoon 1 focused. That's obviously because Ultimate and Splatoon 2 were in production at the same time, but if we are getting another Smash game, it's probably going to be a few years down the line, with plenty of time to pull inspiration from 2 and 3, so why not? But before we get into those games, I want to discuss Inkling as a character. To bring them more in line with modern Splatoon, I want to make 2 changes. First, their Agent 3 ult would reference Splatoon 3's hero gear as opposed to Splatoon 1. I know the workplace safety vest has its fans, but I'm personally a sucker for the Mad Max style survival gear. I also wouldn't mind it if the default ult pulled more from Splatoon 3's default gear, but that's not an absolute necessity. Secondly, Inkling's Final Smash is based on a special that's not in Splatoon's 2 or 3, so instead, we'll take from one of 2's most iconic specials and put a heavenly spin on it. The Calamari Booyah Bomb is a special that involves 3 specific portions. First off, the Inkling that uses this attack would fly above center stage to start charging the Booyah Bomb, which would be aided by taunts from both the player and their teammates. Second, the Squid Sisters would appear on either side of the Inkling, performing what's essentially their current assist trophy and pulling the screen's focus towards them. Finally, the Inkling would drop the Booyah Bomb wherever they choose, causing a violent blast that works sort of like the Smart Bomb item, but also douses the stage and any opponents caught in ink. So that's what I'd change about the Inkling, but there's still a little more work to be done with this character. Instead of adjusting how they work further though, I want to take a chance to add on to the character's current representation with a new addition to Splatoon 2 that ended up being very popular. The Octoling is a fresh addition that came to the world of Splatoon via the game's Octo expansion, and they ended up being a really common request for an Echo Fighter in Ultimate. Here, they'd take that chance to join the battle, and shake up Inkling's representation just enough to stay fresh. First off, they'd switch Inkling's Splattershot for a pair of Splat Dualies. These give them an increased rate of fire, and give them the option to cancel their neutral special with a dodge roll, but take away some of their range. Next, they'd switch the Splat Bomb for a Burst Bomb, which would explode on contact with the stage or the opponent, as opposed to a timer. For alternate costumes, they'd rep some fresh outfits and ink colors that aren't in Inkling's kit, including outfits based on Off the Hook's gear from Splatoon 2, and maybe even some Salmon Run uniforms. Lastly, for their final smash, we'd borrow the Killer Whale's attack pattern, but with a fresh new implementation. Here, the Octoling would summon Pearl and Marina, who would fire up the Princess Cannon for a blast of ink that consumes the entire stage. While Pearl fires and Marina cheers, the Octoling is free to roam around and smack opponents into the blast at their whim. And the attack concludes with one final burst of power before Pearl and Marina disappear. So that's how I'd freshen up Splatoon's current character lineup, and with that, I think we're finally ready to cover the stars of the show, Deep Cut. I feel like the first thing we should cover is how they'd move around on stage. As much as I'd love to have all 3 appear at all times, I don't know if whatever consoles the next game is on could handle 8 Deep Cuts all on screen at once, so we may have to downsize. Honestly, this issue is really difficult, and what I've got isn't ideal, but it's all I've got, so if you have an idea that you think would work better, let me know in the comments below. Basically, you'd play as all 3 at once, but only one would be on the stage at a time. The special moves would decide whether you're controlling Fry, Shiver, or Big Man. And they'd each have their own animations for walking, jumping, idling, shielding, basically any action that's not an attack or a grab. The others would pop into existence for moves involving them, Ginyu Force style, but other than the specials, no moves would force a switch. They could even have their own stats, maybe Big Man is fast but light, Shiver is strong but slow, and Fry is tanky but deals less damage. But I don't really think that's necessary, and I kinda just pitched a stance change character, so I'm not pressed about it. With that out of the way, let's take a look at some of the specials. First, let's discuss the neutral special. This would be an unconventional move, kind of like Wii Fit Trainer's Deep Breathing. Basically, the members of Deep Cut would start pumping each other up as you held the button, and if you hold it for long enough, you'll get a brief attack buff. For the other specials, each will be assigned to a member of Deep Cut, and using that special would be how you switch to that member, although you could select your preferred default on the character select screen similar to other stance change characters. For the side special, will involve Fry's Eel Buddies. She'll pull out her flute and play a note that you could hold via the special button for different effects. A quick note would cause a decoy eel to appear, which would be fast but deal less damage and be easier to destroy. A held note would cause a masked eel to appear, which would be significantly slower but hit like a truck and wouldn't be destroyed so easily. For the down special, Big Man will submerge into the ground similar to his boss fight. From here, he could move around the platform, and once he rises, he'll fling out a splat bomb that functions kind of like Inklings. However, the move can be held, which will have two different effects. Big Man will slowly get bigger, which means he'll be easier to hit out of the move, and the bomb he produces will also get bigger and stronger. The up special will involve Shiver summoning a much smaller Master Mega from below. As he breaches, either from the ground or off stage, the player can grab a hold to get a ride upwards, and as you charge this move, his recovery distance gets stronger and his trajectory can be aimed. Up next, let's cover the smash attacks. For the side smash, Shiver will pull out a Tri-Stringer and fire it directly forward. The primary hitbox will be a single burst of ink that fires out in a similar trajectory to Force Palm, but the two smaller shots will fire from above and below. For the down smash, Big Man will do a belly flop onto the opponent, which will involve two actual attacks, Big Man landing, and the splat bomb underneath him knocking himself up and the opponents into the ground. The up smash will involve Fry using a Splatana Stamper and swinging overhead, for a very slow but very powerful kill option. For the Nair, Fry will summon a long eel to spin around her for solid coverage and a vital get off me tool. The Fair and Bear will both entail Splatana Slashes, also from Fry. For the Dare and the up air, Shiver will bust out the Tri-Stringer, but the Dare will involve an uncharged downward shot, and the up air will involve a hefty swing. The neutral attack will be a combo move from all three members of Deep Cut. First, Fry will kick at the opponent, and then Shiver will slash at them with a fan, and lastly, Big Man will belly flop the opponent, sans splat bomb. The side tilt will have Big Man clap with his fins, dealing decent damage with some impressive speed. The down tilt will have Shiver do a Rapuken motion, with a small Master Mega Fin popping out of the ground to deal damage. The up tilt will have Big Man do a small jump to hype up his friends, and his raised fins will deal damage in an upwards motion. The dash attack will have Big Man roll forwards for a move with solid knockback and great range. Lastly, the grab will have Big Man wrap the opponent in a bear hug, while Shiver smacks them around with a fan, and Fry cheers them both on. For taunts, each will have Deep Cut engage in something they're all known for together. The up taunt will have them put on their Oni masks, which will stay on until either the move is input again, or the player loses a stock. The side taunt will have them perform their show end animation, shouting to whoever they just sent flying. The down taunt will involve all three performing their Splatfest dances, which will continue essentially forever until the move is cancelled. Side note, I don't have a ton to say on victory animations, but I want at least one where Fry dabs. I feel like we've earned it. To round out the moves portion of this set, let's discuss the final smash. Fair warning, this will spoil an endgame cutscene for Splatoon 3, so if you'd like to skip that, here's another timestamp. For Deep Cut's final smash, we'll weaponize their efforts to launch Agent 3 into space. We'll start with Big Man flinging out smart bombs around the stage, which will blast the opponents toward the center, where Fry will summon a tornado of eels that'll drag the opponent towards the sky. Lastly, Shiver will have Master Mega spiral up to launch any victims that are caught in the tornado into the stratosphere. So that's the characters' moves, but we do still have to cover their alternate costumes, and honestly I think the answer is pretty simple. Splatoon 3's Splatfest colors. The default will be their standard blue Shiver, yellow Fry, red accents Big Man formation, but the second alt will have a purple Shiver, orange Fry, green Big Man formation, and the third will have a green Shiver, a red Fry, and a blue Big Man formation. Other than that, I'm not sure, just because we haven't gotten any more Splatfests, but I'm sure they'll fill out at least 8 costumes. Also, I'm guessing Deep Cut will get a new look for Splatoon 3's story DLC, and that could absolutely be an 8th costume. Now that we're done with Deep Cut themselves, let's cover another way to represent Splatoon 3, a stage. Currently, Splatoon's only stage in Smash is Moray Towers, which is, less than ideal. Personally, I'd like to see that stage get cut and see 2 new stages for Splatoon, one representing the multiplayer and one representing the campaign. For the multiplayer stage, I'm gonna opt for Mahi-Mahi Resort. It's a super pretty map, and seeing its Splatfest variant would be beautiful. For the campaign stage, part of me really wants to use the Deep Sea Metro with its intense backgrounds, but Alterna is the obvious choice. Alterna is the setting of Splatoon 3's campaign, and I think it's actually got a ton of potential for a traveling stage. Seeing a platform travel between snow-covered islands, abandoned buildings, and a rocket platform surrounded by hairy ooze would be fantastic. As with any stage, it'll need some music, and while I don't know too many new songs off the top of my head, I'd like to see these in particular. The goal is to rep a few of Splatoon's lesser-known bands, while still keeping up that fighting energy that Smash music needs to carry. Lastly, let's cover the extra stuff. First off, assist trophies. I'd personally like to see Callie and Marie pass on the assist role since they'd be helping Inkling with their final smash, so I vote we give the role to someone new. Or in this case, something new. Moz is a boss salmonid in Splatoon 2 and 3, and they attack players by leaping out of the ink and biting at them. Here, they'd perform a similar function. They'd swim around on the ground and then suddenly leap up and take a bite out of whoever's in their way. They do this 3 times, but you could knock one out by hitting it with a powerful enough attack while it's exposed. For collectibles, I think Ultimate already covered a lot of Splatoon's bases, but I'd love to see stuff based on Commander Tartar, the Salmon Run cast of characters, and some of the Splatland's lesser-known musicians, like Harmony or Deadfish. Lastly, I'd like to see a novice-type spirit of Spallfry, which would, spoilers for Splatoon 3, here's the timestamp, evolve into a legendary spirit of Huge Fry. To wrap this up, let's discuss a hypothetical boss Splatoon could bring to Smash. There's a lot to work with here, from DJ Octavio to Cohozuna to the one that spoils Splatoon 3, but for our purposes, I'm gonna opt for the former. I understand why some Splatoon fans feel fatigued about this guy showing up constantly, but he's a fun character with fun attacks, and he makes sense as a gateway to some of Splatoon's deeper lore. I figure he'd stay in the background for most of the fight, but he'd try to throw punches with a ton of different arcs and directions, so you'd have to dodge some and parry some others to send punches back his way and force him into a vulnerable position. And that's all I've got. I've got a few people to thank. First off, thank you guys for watching. It's been a super fun video to work on, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Second, I want to give a big thanks to E the Weirdo Art on Twitter. He's been proofreading my scripts for a while now, and on this script, he helped me out with polishing the character switching. Next month's video will finally be the year in review for 2022, and I've got plenty to talk about, so I'm gonna go get to work on that. I hope I see you guys there. Peace out.